President again, Trump, announcing that he is removing the Secret Service security details for former Trump administration officials, Trump 1.0 administration. That would be individuals including John Bolton, who, of course,
started crying about it.
They are not fast friends. They didn't get along too well when Bolton was Trump's NSA. And former CIA Director Mike Pompeo, as well as former NIH Director Tony Fauci. I don't know that there's much controversy about Fauci, but on the others there is. Here's Trump explaining.
But you can't have a security detail for the rest of your life because you worked for government. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Would you feel partially responsible if something were to happen to, say, Dr. Fauci
No.
or John Bolton?
No. You know, they all made a lot of money. They can hire their own security, too. All the people you're talking about, they can go out. I can give them some good numbers of very good security people. They can hire their own security. They all made a lot of money. Fauci made a lot of money. They all did. So if they, felt that strongly, I think that certainly I would not take responsibility.
Well, Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, who was, of course, a Trump supporter, disagrees with the president, at least as it pertains to those who have been threatened, whose lives have been threatened by a formal adversary.
President Trump has taken back the security detail for a number of people: Anthony Fauci, Mike Pompeo, Brian Hook, among them John Bolton, too. The Wall Street Journal editorial board says, pray it won't happen. But what if one of them now gets attacked? If Iran commits violence against any of these men, Mr. Trump won't be able to escape some responsibility.
Yeah, I would encourage the president to revisit the decision for those people who are being targeted by Iran, as the president was targeted for assassination by Iran. As the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, I've reviewed the intelligence in the last few days. The threat to anyone involved in President Trump's strike on Qasem Soleimani is persistent. It's real. Iran is committed to vengeance against all of these people. In fact, the chief of staff of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence agreed with me that if these threats were against him or his family, that he would want security, because the threats are real. There are gaps in our coverage. We don't know what we don't know, and it's better to be safe than sorry, because it's not just about these men who helped President Trump carry out his policy in his first term. It's about their family and friends, innocent bystanders every time they're in public. It's also about the president being able to get good people and get good advice. If people are saying going to work for the president now on Iran or China or North Korea or the Mexican drug cartels, they might hesitate to do so, or they might hesitate if they're in office to give him the advice he needs or carry out the policies that he decides upon.
I think Tom Cotton raises a fair point. And I mean, look, in Chicago, we give security details to chairman of the city's finance committee. So, I mean, who are we to sit in judgment of federal officials under threat from state sponsors of terror getting security details? For more on this and other matters, Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us. Where do you come down on the security detail question?
Well, first, thanks for having me back on the show. It's always a pleasure. Look, I worked for a guy who was given security detail when he left government, talking about Donald Rumsfeld when he left the Bush administration. He had the same guys, the Army CID officers, who were his personal security detail. And he had them for about 2 or 3 years. And then he decided that, that wasn't the right thing to do. He could afford his own security. You don't need all the things you need when you're actually in office, but you do need security. You do need some intelligence. And so he hired a company. He turned his guys back in, thanked the government greatly for their generosity in continuing it, but then he hired his own. I think, President Trump actually has a point. You don't, unless you're a president, you don't get security for the rest of your life. And, that expectation is kind of crazy. And these guys are all in a position to afford their own security details. So why should you and I pay for it the whole time? I think Senator Cotton, while I respect his desire to be helpful and everything, I'm not sure that that's not a little bit of overstatement. A lot of these guys just like to have security details. Bolton, I would put in this category because they like somebody to be able to open a door for them. And
okay, fair enough.
You know, it's they get to carry stuff and do things for them, and they can be sloppy in their personal security habits when they have it. I don't think that would fit Mike Pompeo. I think he's probably one of those guys that the security people love working for him because he's not lording it over anybody or acting like some poobah. But you know, it needs to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. I have to assume this was evaluated. And, you know, with respect to the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, they don't read everything. They get the big stuff. And, you know, that's, I guess, was convincing to Cotton that they needed to keep it. But obviously others, significantly, the president said, nah, they could get their own. I'm okay with that.
I wanted to get to something else, to Secretary of State Marco Rubio now, tweeting out over the weekend, just hearing the Taliban is holding more American hostages than has been reported. If this is true, we will have to immediately place a very big bounty on their top leaders, maybe even bigger than the one we had on bin Laden. Number one, what do you know about that? Number two, if this is true, how could we not know about it? I mean, was the Biden administration hiding the reality about American hostages in Afghanistan?
Apparently they have been. You know, most of us thought, hey, we got all the good guys out, at least the American good guys. We knew we left and stiffed a whole bunch of Afghan good guys. But we kind of thought we'd gotten all the Americans out, but apparently not. And I will point out that Secretary Rubio's predecessors there at the State Department were the ones who were going crazy because veterans groups and some folks with the right kind of experience were doing independent efforts to get Americans and our allies out of Afghanistan. In fact, they threatened them with jail time if they didn't stop those operations. If you want to read the book, there's a book called Pineapple Express that talks about that effort. Done by a bunch of former Special Forces guys. So, you know, there's a double sword here for the Biden administration. Not only did they not tell all of us there were extra people there, but they shut down people who were making efforts to get those folks out. And, yeah, I would agree with Rubio. We need to change the rules here.
Well, yeah, and put bounties on the heads of Taliban leaders or more. I don't know. I don't think we need Corey Mills to do things by himself anymore, but some military response to this. And the other thing, too, it would seem to me, to draw attention to this, if you know who the names are, does it make sense at this juncture to publicize names of American hostages still being held by the Taliban so we focus some national attention on this?
I think the American people need to know that there are hostages there, and to start the effort to get them out. You know, President Trump said he's going to be very transparent. He was way more transparent the last time than any of his Democrat critics have been by long shot, particularly the Biden administration. And I think that should continue. You know, the more he can get the truth out about all of the lies and you know, shenanigans, to use Biden's term, that those guys did, the better it is for America. Because the people that are still defending Biden like he was some sort of hero, and that you know, he had a successful presidency. I mean, come on, these things need to be brought out. It's not just to pick on the old man. It's because the old man screwed America for 4 years, not to mention the 46 years before that when he was in other roles in government. So, look, we need to tell the truth. The Trump administration should release this information unless there's evidence that by releasing those specific names, it will put those people in danger.
Right.
That's the only thing that would warrant keeping it quiet. The American people need to know, and then the American government, the new one, needs to show us what the heck they're doing to fix the problem that Biden created by their incompetence.
Let's talk about the other American hostages and one being held by Hamas. I was under the impression that they were going to be released soon after President Trump, well, after Trump was sworn in as president.
Yeah, that was the impression we got. I think the President Trump, when he got in there after talking with the Israelis, they said, well, let's go ahead with this plan we've already got on the table. Let's see how well they stick to it. And Trump gave a little ground there so they didn't have to go in and start a total renegotiation. I think if those people don't get out soon, because they were supposed to be in some of the earlier releases, if that continues to be a cock-up, I think the rules of the game are going to change.
Well, I mean, not to be technical here, but the phase 1, phase 2 business, phase 1 was 6 weeks, they said. Mm-hmm. So
Right.
We're still within that window. But I mean, this idea of talking about phase 1 and deadlines with Hamas is surreal, frankly.
Well, it's surreal, and it's, look, anybody with any brains knows they're going to break it. They are not a legitimate negotiating partner. They are criminals and animals. Just their response to the ceasefire, it's not, oh, thank God we're finally going to stop this. No, it's cheering like, we won the victory. Now we can go do something else to screw the Jews. It's reprehensible. They're bad people. So I guess they're giving them enough rope to hang themselves. But I'll tell you what, I'm ready for somebody to pull a lever and let the trap door open on them.
Trump doing his best Marcellus, saying something is rotten in the state of Denmark. It's a little Hamlet reference for you there, Stephen.
It's very highbrow of you.
Yeah, thank you. He apparently was on a 45-minute call about his interest in acquiring Greenland, you may have heard. And the reporting was that it has the Danes scrambling, that it was characterized, I'm quoting this unnamed source, it was a very tough conversation. He threatened specific measures against Denmark, such as targeted tariffs, that seemed to get the attention of the Colombians. What about the Danes?
Look, I think in my heart of hearts, I mean, while I think President Trump would be perfectly fine to annex Greenland, I think what he is really aiming at is trying to get the Danes to upgrade the capabilities they have on that big, gigantic floating aircraft carrier out there in the north, and to get them to, if they're not going to do it, allow us to do it on their territory. I think both of those would be acceptable alternatives to President Trump, but he's letting them know NATO needs some more action out of you guys. And if you can't do it, we'll take the island from you and we'll use it. That's, he's negotiating the deal, guys, and that's what he does. And he doesn't care if it's not the way this is normally done. He's perfectly happy to do it in a way nobody else would do, as long as it's effective. And we saw that with the Colombians. How many people around this country were clutching their pearls? Oh, my gosh, he can't do that because the Colombian government is a partner of ours in so many things. He can't treat them that way. And an hour later, they were saying, oh, no, we just want it. We'll take them. We'll even send our presidential plane to get them. But, the optics are a little bad for us. That's kind of what the last line was not said, but that's kind of what they were saying. It sounds to me like playing hardball is working.
One other matter I want to get your reaction to, sort of a long coming COVID reckoning, the reinstatement of military personnel who were bounced for refusing the vax, and then also this announcement from CIA Director John Ratcliffe about the origins of the virus.
To make public an assessment that actually took place in the Biden administration, so it can't be accused of being political, and it does assess. The CIA has assessed that the most likely cause of this pandemic that has wrought so much devastation around the world was because of a lab-related incident in Wuhan, and so we'll continue to investigate that moving forward. But I think it was important for the American people to see an institution like the CIA get off the sidelines and be truthful about what our intelligence shows, at the same time of protecting us from adversaries like China if they caused or contributed to this.
Well, and the key is not this, telling the American people what anybody who's been paying attention already knows. They're always the last to the dance, these agencies we're supposed to rely on. But the fact that here again, a la what we were just talking about with the Taliban and potential additional U.S. hostages that hadn't been disclosed, this was a CIA assessment that was made under the previous administration and was not released. That's the key.
Yeah, that's the thing that should, all the Americans who voted for President Trump should be saying, yeah, no joke, we knew that. And all the ones who voted for President or for Kamala Harris, the vice president, to be president, and were probably going to vote for Joe Biden before he dropped out, they need to evaluate their ability to discern truth from falsehood, because clearly they have been accepting and swallowing a pile of crap as far as what the government has been teaching them, and slapping people like you and I around for having these aberrant thoughts and being, conspiracy theorists and everything else. It's kind of funny when the truth comes out, isn't it?
Well, there's something else to this too, and Richard Ebright, the chemical biologist from Rutgers University, points this out. The withholding of this is in violation of the COVID-19 Origin Act of 2023, which mandated the release of this assessment that the CIA did not release. And so here we have a prosecutable offense as far as I'm concerned. So I hope Pam Bondi's paying attention.
I think Pam Bondi pays attention to everything. So
Yeah,
I think we're going to see some action there on some of these things. At least I believe so. Look, we have been sold a bill of goods for 4 years, and in some circles before that 4 years, even under Trump, I think some of these government organizations, some of which I've been associated with, at least to work with in the past and always had respect for, have not been truthful with the American people. And I got to tell you, that doesn't happen because, some equivalent of a captain or a major in their organization makes a decision to do that. That stuff comes from the leadership of those agencies. And some of them, they like to make the thing, oh, yeah, we're nonpartisan. We don't pick sides. Well, obviously, but you're also not listening to the people who are in office at the time with regard to Trump 1 and now Trump 2. I think somebody needs to pay a price for that. That is not the norm. The non-elected civil servants, whether they're in an intel organization, the civilian part of DOD, the uniform part of DOD, or anywhere else in the government, they are not independent actors. And when Democrats talk about that, oh no, they need to be independent. They're not. They work for the President of the United States. And if they can't work for the guy that the American people elect, they need to resign, not undermine that elected leader of this country. It is a crime, literally, for them to get away with what they're doing, and it's got to stop. And, as my old boss, who was a former congressman, and you won't guess this, but a former Marine, used to say to me all the time, Steve, there's nothing that focuses people like a good hanging in the morning.
Oh, my God.
It's true. Yes.
And
it's an attention
think,
grabber.
I don't think we necessarily need to put them up on and hang a rope around their neck, but metaphorically they need to be hung, and they need to be removed from government service, and they need to spend time in some of our other government facilities, the ones with big tall walls and barbed wire on top of them, with Bubba as their roommate. And we need to see some people pay the price for the lies that have been told to the American people. That's the only way you're going to reestablish true confidence in our government. And we need that. Our people should have confidence that the government we elect is actually there to serve those of us who elected them.
He is a Stephen Hangham High Bucci, served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer, top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you as always.
It's my pleasure, and we're happy to talk to you next week.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies supplements, changing the world one life at a time.
So when we saw the advertisements for this by reputable people,